Week 6 is upon us in the National Football League, and it is time for the Mojobreak Blitz. Cody with you. Alongside me is Doug and Dan. And, guys, it was an eventful Week 5. A lot of shakeup in the NFL, big upsets that happened, a devastating injury for the Dallas Cowboys. Before we talk about Week 6 and what we're going to do this week is focus on some of the quarterbacks, both young and old, who are having interesting seasons. Some guys having huge seasons, some guys maybe not performing up to expectations, and talk about them and how they are doing in the hobby right now. But Doug, I'll start with you. Just some of your takeaways. What did you see in Week 5 in the NFL?
Red Rocket time, baby. That's what's going down. I mean, when he was on the Bengals, Mr. Andy Dalton, they made the playoffs every year. Granted, they didn't win a playoff game, but I think that Andy Dalton will get the Cowboys to the playoff. I've never been a huge fan of Dak, and everybody was giving him all this praise. He was still losing games. So I think Andy Dalton gets him to the promised land. Then he looks, he's like, I'm not wearing orange anymore. I'm wearing blue with a star. I'm going to win some playoff games. And then we have like a Nick Foles situation going on. And Dallas fans love Andy Dalton. That's my takeaway.
Do the Dallas fans love Andy Dalton?
I think they've got a lot of talent at receiver. I think it's better than the Bengals had with A.J. Green and Boyd and the cast of characters. The only guys that remain the same was A.J. Green. They've got Cooper. They've got CeeDee Lamb. They've got Michael Gallup. They've got Schultz. It comes out there as well. He's got a great running back in Zeke Elliott. And I think he's willing to erase his past and go forward for that glory hole.
I got one for you. And I Andy Dalton, he is who he is. He had some weapons. He put up some numbers. When it came down to crunch time, a must-win game, playoff game, he was terrible. Kind of got that Clayton Kershaw approach, just can't get it done when it counts. Ben DiNucci. Cody's probably like, what? Who?
You just
Doug's like, who?
You didn't even know his name. You had to look it up.
I know, because I wanted to do a little bit of research. Seventh-round pick out of Baylor, James Madison. So, what do I know?
Well prepared.
But, whatever. You don't even know who he is.
Exactly.
You don't know who he is.
That's the point.
So he has stepped up. He is the backup to Andy Dalton. Rookie. And we love the rookies. And I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to tie it into the hobby. That's what I'm going to do right now. He has Redemption Rookie Autos in Spectra that released today. Ben DiNucci.
That's the guy.
He goes for that Jackie Moon full court shot when he's making his picks here,
Forget Burrow. Forget
Herbert.
Who? Forget him.
Who?
DiNucci fever.
Oh my
Have
God.
you caught it?
I love the name. It's a football name.
I bet you he's not even second on the depth chart.
No, he is 100%. I looked it up. That's what I was doing here. He is.
You sure they maybe just haven't updated it yet? You sure they didn't just sign like a Blaine Gabbert type to be the backup?
No, they got the future. DiNucci.
All right.
It's a great
Probably not
man.
even saying it right either.
No, it does. Well,
It's a good name.
It's a great name. Hopefully, I am saying it.
Well-
If that's not how you pronounce his name, he should change it.
What if it's Danucky?
It could be DiNucci. But watch out for that. We love our rookies, and he is in products, and he's in the hottest product that just got released. So get excited. James Madison. Powerhouse. Quarterback factory.
I think you'd see Colin Kaepernick step in and be the quarterback before you'd see Ben DiNucci hitting the field, to be honest. So
I don't know. Well,
I think that's what would happen.
Okay, well, mark it down here. This is episode what?
This will be what? Week 6? So episode 6.
This is episode 6. Mark my words.
Okay, all right.
Week 10 might be like Nucci fever.
See, he doesn't have a whole lot of cards.
It's yeah. Well, we will see. Hopefully for
I'm gonna take off now because
yeah. There it is. Yeah, end it.
DiNucci.
That's your take for the week.
I think it's
no. That is the hottest of the hot takes that I've ever heard ever.
I thought we were getting an Andy Dalton hot take there, and then that was piping hot out of the oven take.
You're gonna see him this week. Andy Dalton's going to roll out there, and it's going to be the same old Andy D.
Remember this offseason when Dalton first got signed too?
I think he's got that motivation.
Where there was there was so many people being like, Dalton's gonna be the guy. Even people saying that, there's gonna be a quarterback competition in Dallas. I'm sorry, that's just.
But you gotta
crazy
admit,
to
he's
me.
probably the top 5 of
Absolutely.
a backup.
Absolutely, no question, question about it. And in a bad NFC East, he might be just enough to get them into the playoffs at like 7-9. So it's not completely.
Ask the Bengal
crazy.
fans.
Yeah.
Would you want another 6 years of Andy Dalton or Joe Burrow?
Give me Burrow.
I think every Bengals fan would be like, give me Burrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, but when you don't have a choice, when you have your franchise quarterback go down, which, by the way, it sucks. He just played for that franchise. Yes, he got $31 million, but he was trying to get a 5, 6, 7-year deal out of the Cowboys, which didn't happen.
But what
that'll be an interesting move now.
DiNucci has is he's a rookie, the unknown, and everybody loves an underdog. 7th rounder. Andy Dalton throws a couple interceptions, and there's gonna be like DiNucci chats.
There's actually
with the
you know, now that I'm
35,000.
There's 50%. The NFC that division is 50% ginger starting quarterback now. All we need is maybe Daniel Jones.
I don't think you
to
can
have
say
it.
that anymore.
That's not politically correct.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
As a man with a reddish beard, I'll allow it.
I have red in my beard too.
It doesn't
That's the
matter.
Irish.
It absolutely, you cannot say that.
So what would be more? I didn't know that wasn't politically correct. So what's the correct? Red hair? That's correct.
That's a redhead.
What's
redhead?
What's wrong with
Why? We're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to keep on going to the next segment.
I thought we were gonna get into.
I need updates on the.
Yeah,
the
you can't.
sensitivity
Okay,
over here.
just know you can't say it.
All right. Look, I thought we were going to get into like maybe an MVP moment for Russell Wilson or a big upset the Raiders over the Chiefs. Hell, Tom Brady, was it 4th down or not? But DiNucci fever.
Yeah,
clearly.
yeah.
That's what we
DiNucci
gotta talk
and
about.
Doug dropping the
That's what we
big
gotta
G.
talk about. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
does he have red hair?
I don't know what he. I actually don't know what he looks.
if he walked in
see.
here right now,
I know, exactly.
I wouldn't be able to
Maybe
tell
this
you
is
who
where
Field
we were
is.
sitting next to Ben DiNucci here.
Could be.
Actually, when I first typed in his name, I typed in Dan DiNucci.
See, you want to be him. You must really like this guy.
He looks like a quarterback. Look
Looks
at
like
that.
Uncle Rico.
Look at that.
That goes a long way.
Looks like Daniel Jones with a beard.
He does look like Daniel Jones with a beard.
Well, we'll see, Dan. That's like I said. That's a 1 in a million shot.
It's
so-
not 1 in a million at all. He's a backup. Anything can happen.
It's 1 of 3 or so, I
It's-
guess. Really,
yeah.
technically. Well, let's talk about the quarterback position that is the focus of the football card hobby. And I thought it'd be good to kind of have a recap here so far of where some QBs are standing. We're not going to talk about some of the bigger ones, like the guys where they stand. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady. We know where those guys are. But some guys who are younger and some of the veteran guys. We're going to start with some of the rising stars in the NFL, some of the younger QBs. We're going to start with guys like Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, and then maybe this may be the last year we can call him on the younger side of QBs, Jared Goff. But
Old man.
The old man of this group here at an old 26 years old, so old. But I thought we should start with the Texans, Deshaun Watson. They fire their coach, Bill O'Brien. They're 1-4. They get a win. It's not because of Watson that they're 1-4, though. It's not a good defense right now. I think they're ranked 24th in the NFL. Right now, he's putting up pretty good numbers, 8.9 yards per attempt. He's throwing the ball well, 100 QB rating. And you look at the remaining schedule, especially in a weaker division like the AFC South, I don't think it's completely out of the question that he can actually get that team maybe at 8-8, maybe if you're really feeling good about them, 9-7. So I think maybe Deshaun Watson is a guy to keep an eye on. Kyler Murray, we were talking so much about him at the beginning of the season, where he was just on a roll. In those first 3 games, he had 5 touchdowns or 5 turnovers in his last 3 games, I should mention. 2 in his first 2 games. That's it. 5 touchdowns overall in his first 2 games. He was on fire. He's kind of come back to earth here recently. And then Jared Goff. The Rams are 4-1. They're looking like one of the best teams in the NFC. Jared
Preach.
Goff might be the best deep ball passer in the NFL right now. That's how good he has been. And you take a look, if you're watching us, at some of the values of these guys' most recent sales. Dan, I'll start with you. Of those three guys, who's the guy you are keeping an eye on? Maybe a guy who's undervalued, or just kind of your thoughts on any of these three guys here?
So I love Deshaun Watson. I think if Watson was in a better situation, I've talked about it before, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. He can do a little bit of everything. He's got a cannon. He's, elusive in the pocket. Bill O'Brien did everything he could to prevent Deshaun Watson from succeeding. I think Doug can probably agree with that. Mm-hmm. I got to give you props, Cody. You obviously, football. You know how to eye talent. Jared Goff is a beast. He just doesn't do anything wrong.
Besides getting a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
The numbers look good.
Actually, you know what? I disagree. He can't spike the ball to save his life.
That's true. Well, neither can Ryan Tannehill.
So, but Jared Goff, still undervalued.
Yeah.
I don't know what he has to do to get a little love in the hobby.
It's because the uniforms are ugly. So
it's not the uniforms.
If they were a
it's
little
not
bit more appealing on the eye.
It's not the logos.
It's got to be the stigma of like, he's the moment you take him off the Rams and out of the McVay system, what is he going to be, right? That's got to be it.
Jared Goff, the one thing about Jared Goff, and I love Jared Goff, but he's not very like, when it comes to interviews and stuff like that, he kind of says the right things. He doesn't really blossom in the limelight and say things that like maybe he shouldn't, or have like opinions. He's very well coached to be super even keel about everything. He will never throw his teammates under the bus. You just never hear any drama associated with Jared Goff, and I think that actually kind of affects his hobby value because nobody's ever talking about him.
Yeah, I'll break it down for you. 2016 was a long time ago. 2017 is a long time ago. Obviously, if you look at all the sales, the one who's selling the best is Kyler Murray because that's the new booty. These guys either need to be a top 5 out of the gate or people move on past them. Yeah. Jared Goff sold great in 2016, maybe even in 17. But now, it's just he's not been a top 5. Watson struggled, and now it's Burrow and it's Herbert and it's Tua and it's Kyler and maybe a little Danny Dimes. And then next year, people are going to forget about probably Danny Dimes. So
nobody is thinking about Danny Dimes.
Actually,
you want to think about, how quick everything changes.
Yeah.
And both in the hobby and the actual NFL. Dwayne Haskins has essentially lost his job in Washington. Mm-hmm. Alex Smith comes in. I love Alex Smith.
It's a great story, yeah.
Great story. It was terrifying to see him come in. Against the Rams. Rams didn't go light on him. They basically just started rushing him like crazy. I think the first play of the game, he had Aaron Donald like literally on his back. And I'm just like, this is not going to be good TV right here. This is going to be bad.
The leg seems to be fine. Seems to be,
but then you look at
medicine, it's crazy.
But last year we were talking about Dwayne Haskins as being one of the up and coming phenom, could be a top 10 quarterback this year, and now he's third on the depth chart.
Yeah, I feel like they pulled the plug on him quick. I haven't watched a lot of his games, but the narrative in the offseason with Haskins was that his head's in the right place. He's been studying. He's ready to go. The Washington football team. Sorry, I'm gonna slip up.
Man, you come in, you start talking about Andy Dalton, and you drop the G word, and then you drop the R word, and
I'll put some money in the jar for that one. But no, seriously, why do we pull the plug on him so fast? He was a first rounder, right? He was a first round pick.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing about the salary cap era that allows teams to move on from him quick. But I also feel like sometimes they're moving on from them way too quick. They didn't let him. Now I don't know what the plan is. Is it just like, okay, we're gonna have him sit and maybe try him again next year, or is he just done?
I don't know. It's the big question marks that I have with quote unquote franchise quarterbacks that were just recently drafted is Dwayne Haskins and Mitchell Trubisky.
Yep.
Is it over for Mitchell Trubisky
Yeah,
in
same thing.
Chicago? Is it done?
I'm surprised it took this long, to be quite honest.
You actually trade up.
Yeah.
And they really wanted. I mean, the Niners fleeced the Bears in that deal.
Yeah.
The Bears really wanted Mitchell Trubisky to be your franchise quarterback. We fast forward, 2.5 years, and he's lost his job.
Which is funny because he only played 1 year in college, so he had a lot of maturing to do, and the Bears were ready to make that a project. But now, obviously, they're like, no, we're not making it a project.
Where's the issue? Is the issue with the advanced scouting these quarterbacks? Is the issue with maybe a specific front office? There's a scout that is really good at selling a certain player for a certain system.
I think it's in the NFL, especially in the draft. I feel like more than any other sport, and maybe this goes into advanced scouting, they overthink it. Like, there were so many guys. Trubisky was in the same draft, as
Mahomes
and Watson.
Right. And Watson. That was the one, to me, that stood out. We all watched that game, that national championship game, and Watson was the best player on the field. He was incredible. And it was just like, don't overthink this. That's the guy. Why are you taking a guy who nobody watched, only had 1 year of football under his belt playing in college? I think more than any other sport, they overthink it.
Imagine Watson on the Bears. I mean, maybe they don't go with Mahomes, but Watson was the clear-cut choice. And I think some of these scouts and some of these agents and some of these GMs, and we had that sometimes with, the guy who was the GM before Lynch with the Niners.
Balky?
Yeah, Balky.
Where it would be like, I'm going to draft an Aldon Smith out of order because I'm going to look like a genius rather than taking the sure bet. I think these guys. What?
But he did look like a genius.
He did.
Well, maybe on Aldon Smith, but that
was just a
there
personality.
was plenty of guys. Well, he obviously had character issues, but there was plenty of guys that he drafted that everybody went, ooh, and then didn't pan out.
Reuben Foster.
Right.
Well, Reuben Foster had other off-field issues too, but there was like receivers that he would take like in the first round that were supposed to be third rounders, and it was almost like an ego thing. Like, I see things that other people don't see. It's like if I go to Vegas and I'm going to take the 500 to 1 shot because if it pays off, I'm going to look like a genius rather than just taking the easy bet, which would have been Watson.
It's the Ben DiNucci approach.
Yeah, it totally is. Totally is. Live and die by Ben DiNucci.
Real quick on Kyler, who was just the talk of the hobby going into the season. In those first 2 weeks, he's just looked incredible. And it was like, here it is. This is the breakout season for Kyler Murray. I should say in those first 2 games, he had 158 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. In the last 3 games combined, 138 yards rushing and 2 TDs. So he has fallen off a little bit. What do we make of where his value is sitting at right now? It hasn't really been affected by his performance as of late. Do you guys see things kind of, if he keeps this up where he hasn't been bad per se, he's just kind of not been what he was in those first couple of weeks where he just looked so electric, so dynamic. Where do you think his value is by the end of the year if it's another season where the Cardinals maybe are 6-10, 7-9, they don't make that playoff push?
I mean, I think next year is his make or break season. I think this season being a second full season, last year being his rookie campaign, I think you got to give him if he hovers around 8-8, I think that's a success.
Yeah. And
it builds upon into the next year. And then I think next year he's expected to make the playoffs. I think it's a development thing with him. I mean, you got to learn the game. Most guys don't learn the game right away, but he is a dual threat and quite possibly could be the best dual threat of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before that division's tough. It's tough to win games in that division. And if you look at the NFC West, minus playing the NFC East, they all have a pretty tough schedule.
Yeah.
Besides having to play each other, the Kyler, I agree with Doug. I don't think you can really judge him on this year. They need some pieces around him. Still, they have a great receiver core that they're basically working in. D-Hop is having a career year. Larry Fitzgerald, the ageless wonder, still out there. I turn on a Cardinals game and he's basically going right up the middle, just doing the dirty work, getting the first downs, keeping the drives going. And all that allows Kyler to really spread out the field with his legs. but they need a little bit better offensive line. They need a little bit better of a balanced attack. I think they need a better running back in that system, and they need some pieces on defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Chandler Jones is a beast. So,
but they need. You can't just have
Need a little bit more,
You can't just have one guy. Patrick Peterson is probably on the back nine of his career at this point. I think they still have Hassan Reddick, but I think they're talking about moving him. Because that's another thing. We got the there's going to be some moving and shaking coming on in the next week or two. We have the trade deadline, which I think is November 3rd. So there's a lot of rumors going around. The Niners are rumored with a lot of deals in the works. Maybe a Matt Ryan or a David Njoku.
It's all clickbait.
I don't know why the Niners need another tight end. I don't look at the Niners team and I'm like, man, you guys just have a really big hole at the tight end spot. I think it's like the one position you guys don't have a hole in.
Right. Well, I mean, we did lose Jordan Reed. I don't know when he's coming back, but
Did he get hurt?
of course he did.
And that awful New York trip from hell. Yeah,
no
he was
kidding.
he was one of the casualties.
But I it's funny how these reporters, these clickbaits, it's like, oh, well, Shanahan used to be the offensive coordinator for Matt Ryan, so they must be best friends. They're going to trade him. It's like, how do you guys know that? Just because somebody worked with somebody? So is there a coach out there, like, look at like Mike Nolan, how many teams has he been on? So is it all of a sudden he likes everybody in the league? And it's like, come on.
But I actually think there might be a little substance to the Matt Ryan rumors just because Quinn was fired and the GM was fired. So to me, it looks like it's time to clean house.
So who's going to play quarterback for the
It
Falcons?
It doesn't even really matter at this point.
But you're not mathematically eliminated yet.
Basically, if they trade Matt Ryan and they can get a third and maybe a fifth round pick.
We got to remember that
I think the scenario that people are really using the clickbait is that it's going to be a straight across trade Matt Ryan for Jimmy Garoppolo.
No.
That's not going to happen.
No,
that's not going to. I think it could be a deal where Matt Ryan comes in, and then you have maybe a Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo's like, my ankles hurt a little bit more than we thought. So we're gonna throw Matt Ryan in there.
Yeah, but you can't clean house in week 5 because they could go 8-3 and make the playoffs. Very hard to do. But we got to remember there's an extra team this year. So why, if you were a Falcon fan and they traded your franchise quarterback?
He was drafted. He was drafted in what, 07?
Yeah,
08.
08?
Yeah.
Dude, it's time.
He went to a Super Bowl.
It's time. 12 years in the league. The Niners, I think, if they were to move away from Jimmy Garoppolo, there has to be a stopgap. I think Matt Ryan would be a good solution for a 1 to 2 year span where you draft a franchise quarterback out of college. You know that having that good, solid rookie quarterback on a rookie contract is basically the modern way of building a win.
The Niners are not going to move from Jimmy Garoppolo during the season. The guy just went to the Super Bowl, had one bad game.
The Patriots moved. The Patriots traded him away during the season.
Yeah, but they had Tom Brady still.
I'm not totally sold on that. I think that he looked really rough against Miami, and he was playing on a bad ankle, probably rushed himself back onto the field. But it was kind of remarkable how bad he looked. I've been a Jimmy defender. He beats
the Rams this weekend, and nobody even remembers Miami games.
But I've been a Jimmy defender. But he has not looked very good when he has been on the field this year. It's just that simple. So I think that if he always kind of felt like he had that status of like, is he just the stopgap here? And we always knew how much Shanahan really liked Kirk Cousins, and that rumor never really died. And now you've got a guy with the Falcons are 0-5. You got a guy like Matt Ryan. It does make a lot of sense. I don't think that it just was plucked out of thin air. I think there is something to it. I think there's a little bit of juice. We'll see. Well, let's talk about some of the other veterans in the NFL that have had really great years so far. 2 guys who are contemporaries. One guy who the baby of this group at 29, Derek Carr. But the 3 guys I want to highlight here: Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, and Derek Carr. Starting with Carr, huge win against the Raiders. Or the Raiders had a huge win against the Chiefs this weekend, going into their bye week. And Carr has career numbers right now. I feel like, especially, and I'm sure Raiders fans will tell me all about how he's been an incredibly frustrating quarterback for the last few years. But it wasn't that long ago where he was one of the MVP favorites when the Raiders made their way back to the playoffs. And so far this season, 8.2 yards per attempt. That's a career high. 73% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. Only 2 quarterbacks have a higher QB rating than him right now, and that would be Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. So I think he's a guy that's interesting to watch. And then the 2 guys who are going to be surefire Hall of Famers, Ben Roethlisberger. Steelers are 4-0. Not really because of Roethlisberger's play. The Steelers' defense is the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL right now. And Roethlisberger right now, the lowest yards per attempt in his career at the moment. So maybe not so much because of him that they're doing well, but I think it's interesting to watch, especially if the Steelers make a deep run, what that does for our mindset of Roethlisberger's place in history. But then Aaron Rodgers, who I think has maybe been the best quarterback in the NFL this season at 36 years old, is having one of his best years in the league. Only starter left without an interception. I want to start with Rodgers, and Doug, I'll start with you. I feel like when we're talking about QBs in the hobby, Brady, obviously, Mahomes is the guy right now, the hot guy right now. But then there's Aaron Rodgers, who I feel like he's got a Super Bowl. He's had all the years of success, all the statistics. If he's able to get back into the playoffs, get back to the Super Bowl, let's say he wins a Super Bowl, where does that place him? I'm not talking all-time QBs. I'm just talking strictly in the hobby. Where does that place him? Does he just under Brady? Does he jump over Mahomes in terms of how much people covet him? And
he should be right next to Roethlisberger, right? But I guess people don't like Roethlisberger. He's already won 2 Super Bowls, but
the stats. Come on, people love the stats.
But I mean, I feel bad for Ben Roethlisberger. I feel like he should be more loved in the hobby. I mean, him and Eli Manning, who came out of the same draft, never get any love for winning those Super Bowls. It's always somebody else on the team that won the game. But Rodgers is beloved in the hobby. I think he's definitely in the hobby era with contenders and stuff like that. He's top 5, maybe even arguably number 2 behind Brady, because we didn't have Favre contender autos. We didn't have Montana contender autos. So I think in the contenders era of things, the parallel era we call it, I think Rodgers is right behind. Right behind Brady.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think with Mahomes, there's the uncertainty. He's still very young, so like, what is he going to become? Is he going to be better than Brady? With Rodgers, the script has already been written pretty much. We know what we're getting. He's at the tail end of his career. But in the contenders era, I would say it is Brady, Rodgers, and Breeze, because Breeze also has a contenders auto.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, like, you're right, Roethlisberger, what does he have to do? And I gotta say that, I mean, Mike Tomlin might be one of the most underrated coaches in history, because people do not talk about him enough.
Is he the longest tenured coach at the moment, right? He has to be, right?
He's close if he's not. Belichick.
Belichick and
but
him, right?
Yeah, I think he's not far off.
But people talk about Belichick constantly.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
He's a genius. He's a genius. Look what Tomlin did last year with his team. His quarterback goes out. Mason Rudolph, I don't know if he was actually the second string last year. He might have been a third string.
Right.
They might have had somebody. I think they traded Joshua Devlin. They had Devlin. They had Devlin.
Yeah.
So he had a carousel of quarterbacks, still able to be consistent, still able to win games. It had kind of a makeshift defense. They made a couple moves. They got Minkah Fitzpatrick, but Tomlin just doesn't get enough love. And I think Tomlin actually very similar to Roethlisberger. If you look at Roethlisberger in the hobby, doesn't get a lot of love. What is it about the Steelers? Are they just expected to be good?
That's what it is. I think it's, to me, the Steelers, to compare them to baseball, they are the Cardinals of football. Like, they're always good. They always turn out talent. But they're not interesting unless you're a fan of that team. I think to the outsider, there's never like a player who pops and it's like, wow, this is the guy to watch right now. I mean, Cardinals had like Pujols and stuff early on, but I always feel like they're a team that's just like, oh, there they are. And the same goes with the Steelers. Like, there they are. They're just expected to be among the class of the NFL. So I think for a lot of fans, that comes off as boring. That's just like, it's the same guys every single year. And they win a Super Bowl here and there. They kind of sprinkle sprinkle them across. So maybe that's what it is. And I also think Roethlisberger, throughout his career, as great as he's been, and with all the Super Bowls, has he ever been the best quarterback in any season he's played? And I don't think
it's
he
hard.
has.
You can't judge clutch, right? You can't put that on stats. You can't look at how many clutch moments a guy's had. But I think as far as a throwback player, this guy is a true throwback player. I mean, how many times does this guy looks like he's not going to make it off the field, and then he's back in the next play? Granted, last year his arm was, he couldn't play, and you've seen him in the sling. You've seen him with the robot arm he had pretty much on. Nobody thought he was even going to come back. Comes back this year, is playing at a high level again. I mean, there was that playoff game where his arm was out of the socket. They put Landry Jones in, and Landry Jones threw a pick six, and then Roethlisberger's out there the next drive with a busted arm, and he's just playing. It's like this guy is a true warrior. And it takes a lot for him to not play. I mean, he may be playing for another 5 or 6 years. You never know.
Demoralizing to Landry Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you basically are the backup quarterback on a team, your starting quarterback gets his arm ripped off, and they have more confidence in him with one arm than you with two. That's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to take. I mean, I don't. Where's Landry Jones now?
Yeah, who knows?
I think he was in the XFL, wasn't he?
He might have been. I know he bounced. I know he bounced around.
He was
a
a
little
star.
bit.
I think he was one of the bigger names.
That's
in the
right.
XFL.
Yeah. Well, it's coming back next year.
Or was that the
see.
AFL? I get them confused. It was one of those spinoff leagues.
XFL.
Oh yeah, the
Is-
AAFL or whatever. I don't
Is
know.
the XFL coming back
Yeah,
next year?
it's coming back.
It's coming back
Yeah.
with The Rock.
The Rock is one of the co-owners of the XFL. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think. Yeah. Anyway, without COVID, I think that would have actually worked out. But here we are. Real quick. What about Derek Carr? I feel like I've been placing him in a lot of in the discussions the last few weeks on here on the hype, but he really is putting up great numbers right now. And after a huge win against the Chiefs, is this a turning point? And I looked at the rest of the schedule for the Raiders too. After they get out of the teeth of this schedule, they got the Buccaneers. They got some tough matchups, but then I think after Week 8, it becomes a very easy schedule. Other than one game against the Chiefs, a lot of winnable games, and I think 2 against the Chargers, 2 against the Broncos there at the end. Raiders make the playoffs. Derek Carr keeps this up. I have his value up here for one of his cards that recently sold, his Prism, and obviously compared to the other 2 quarterbacks, it pales in comparison. Do you think that there is a chance here for a big leap for Derek Carr?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but I think he's a great investment at this point. But I also want to point out the fact that this guy's in the same draft class as Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo's actually went to a Super Bowl, but we're praising Derek Carr, and we're ready to trade away Jimmy Garoppolo. Isn't that funny how it works? Derek Carr's actually played a lot more seasons than Jimmy Garoppolo has, but Jimmy Garoppolo's garbage at this point.
Derek Carr never had the defense that playing with him that the Jimmy Garoppolo did.
The thing about Derek Carr though that's been bizarre as Gruden has come in. The first thing I remember when Gruden took over, there was rumors going around that Carr isn't his quarterback.
Yeah.
That's not the guy that he wants running his
Mike
offense.
Lennon.
And
or Peterman.
no, Peterman, and even in the offseason.
A.J. McCarron they had that one year.
Even in the offseason, they go out, they sign Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, there it goes. Gruden found his guy.
Yep.
He found his guy. Well, Mariota has been injured. He's not even the backup right now. I think he's on injured reserve.
Not a factor at the moment. Yeah.
What I love about Derek Carr is that he truly has bought into Gruden's system.
Yeah.
And
He's a great leader, too.
he, with 11 touchdowns and 1 interception, that basically tells you that he's doing everything right and he's being smart.
Yeah.
Now, he isn't throwing for 450 yards and 6 touchdowns a game, but he's doing what he has to do to win games. And I think the Raiders
is playing well.
I think the Raiders do. I think they do make the playoffs. I don't think they win the division. I don't think they're going to be going to a Super Bowl, but I think they are a team that is really putting it together, and they could be winning that division in the next year or two.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and it also helps, on those game planning when your next door neighbor also happens to be your head coach. Is that happened, right? Like, I feel like I heard that all offseason that Gruden was buying a house that was going to be right next door to Derek Carr in Vegas. So, I guess you got, like, teacher watching over you all night, so you better be good. Yeah. Let's make some picks, shall we? It's a weird week. there was
back in it.
No Thursday night
Back in
game
it.
this week. 2 Monday night games because of the COVID push last week. Are the Patriots going to play? Who knows? It's all wonky right now. But yes, Doug, as you said, back in it, back at 500, 2-0 last week, whereas Dan and I split 1-1. So, Doug, I'll let you start. Since you did go 2-0 last week, who you got in
I'm
week
going
6?
with the Giants over the Washington football team. I think the Giants have looked good the last couple weeks. They're at home. Washington's a mess. I don't know, if Alex Smith is starting, if Allen's starting, maybe Haskins is starting. Who knows? So I think the Giants get that victory. They get that win. And then I'm going with the Titans over the Texans at home. The Titans have been absolutely electric. I love Deshaun Watson, and I won't be disappointed if the Titans lose because I do like Deshaun Watson. But I think the Tennessee Titans, they've had a couple weeks off. They just played on Tuesday, but they're rested up, ready to go. Derrick Henry's beasting out there. Ryan Tannehill's doing I don't know what he did on that touchdown celebration, but I think there's going to be more of that this weekend.
Dan, who you got?
Man, I gotta win again so I can go first because I keep on going after one of you guys, and we're picking the same game. So, first up, I am taking the Sunday night game. I'm going with the Ramley. Whose house? Rams' house.
I like it. You just jinxed yourself.
So Rams gonna, unfortunately, they're just gonna lay the beat down on the Niners. Could be the end of Jimmy Garoppolo's era in San Francisco.
No.
And I think it's low hanging fruit on that one. It'll be that's an easy win. And then I'm going Titans over the Texans.
Over your Super Bowl pick again.
Over my Super Bowl
Yeah,
pick
I
again,
know.
but it's tricky because it could be a trap game. You saw what happened. I mean, last week they turned the corner. They won their first game. They're on a winning streak.
Yeah.
They got one game streak. But Tannehill looks great. That defense looks great. Balanced attack with Derrick Henry. Titans better watch out. They may be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Could be. It's funny. We all three picked the same AFC matchup, but maybe a little different for me. But first off, I'm going to start Cardinals. I think are going to defeat the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. Cowboys, I just think
I almost took that one too.
I think the Prescott injury is devastating, and I know Dalton is about as good an option as you could have as a backup QB, but I think that's a really demoralizing injury, and I think that Kyler is going to turn things around and pick things up here against the Cowboys on Monday night. Time to shine on Monday night. So I think the Cardinals are going to win. And yes, I am going to pick that Texans and Titans game, but give me the upset. I'm going Houston. Houston over the Titans, that Tuesday game. I think it messes with the schedule, and I know they had all that time to rest, which is why I think they look so good on Tuesday
Wait, that
night.
game's on Tuesday again?
No, it's
Oh,
not.
okay.
It's not. But I'm saying they played Tuesday this week.
I mean, short.
It's a short week.
Yeah.
The shortest week.
You know what? The shortest week.
The shortest
exactly.
week.
Yeah, because they're actually playing at 10 a.m., I think, too, right? Or
Yep.
West Coast time.
And
10
I
a.m.
think that Houston thinks, you know what? They've lost to teams that are good teams. They haven't really had they haven't lost to a bad team. You could say Minnesota, but I think Minnesota thinks they're a lot better than 1-4. So I think Houston thinks they're a lot better than 1-4. Going against the Titans team here that, like I said, on a short week, Deshaun, I think he's going to have a big game. Give me the upset. Give me the Houston Texans over the Titans.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it too.
Well, that's going to wrap things up for this edition of the Mojobreak Blitz. Of course, check us out here on Mojobreak Media. We got plenty of other videos, baseball, football, the hype, highlights, all of that and more. Check out Mojobreak Card Shop, where we got personal breaks coming up soon. And, of course, our main feed, Mojobreak, for all of your live group breaks and personal breaks. For Doug and Dan, I'm Cody. We will talk to you next week on the Mojobreak Blitz.